I wrong for forbidding my brother from bringing his girlfriend to our family events because my husband doesn't like it? My husband is an extremely religious and traditional guy, and he's not a fan of couples introducing each other to family unless they're ready to get married. He's only met my family for the first time after our engagement, and that's when I met his as well. I didn't grow up like this, but it's truly something that does not bother me at all, or else I wouldn't have married him. My brother used to date a different girl every month for 2 years straight. My husband didn't mind about my brother's dating life, but he flipped out if anyone even thought of allowing my brother to let any of his flings visit family gatherings. My brother wasn't planning to, but he got mad over how hated my husband was over this and told me over and over who he chooses to bring over to a family event is none of my husband's business. For the past 1.5 years, my brother has been dating this girl, and they're pretty serious. I've met her, and so has my husband. She seems like a really nice and sweet person. They've also expressed how they may get engaged soon. The drama has started during the holidays. My husband and I told my parents that if they host Xmas in their house, they better notify my brother that his girlfriend is not invited. My parents were mad we requested that, called us unreasonable, but ended up following through. My brother wasn't too pleased, and he was mad on Christmas Day that we didn't include his girlfriend. I reminded him that once they make it official, she will be allowed to come, and it's not personal against her. He was still mad and said this was the last time this is happening. Last weekend was my mother's birthday, and due to the fact she spent her birthday alone with my dad for 2 years straight, she wanted to do something special this year and host a nice party. Before the party, my husband reminded my mom of the no girlfriend rule. My mom flipped out at him, and so did my dad, and they told us that we were being extreme with this and they had no right to dictate who enters their house and family events, and that my brother's girlfriend will tag along whenever she wants, whether we like it or not. My brother ended up coming to the party with his girlfriend, and he acted like a champion for defeating my husband on this one. My husband was mad the entire night and wouldn't speak to a single soul. Before we left, he only told my brother, "You must feel proud for acting like a." My entire family who was invited at my mom's party was calling us the assholes for having this rule in the first place.
A young, enthusiastic 19-year-old girl from Stockton, California went to Cal Poly SLO to study architecture. She had a bright future ahead of her until one night in her freshman year, she vanishes. In the spring of 1996, over Memorial Weekend, Kristen Smart goes to a party to let loose and have fun as most college students do. Around 2 a.m., she leaves the party to walk back to her dormitory. However, Smart never makes it back to her dorm. Denise Smart, Kristen's mother, receives a call on Monday, May 27th from Cal Poly police asking if Kristen was with them. That's when Denise Smart learned that her daughter hadn't been seen all weekend and all of her belongings were still in her room. Smart's family immediately tries to file a missing persons report, but local police tell them that it's too early, and the FBI told them that Cal Poly police were in charge. However, campus police did not act right away. By the time that they start investigating, Kristen has been missing for 4 days. Once they begin investigating her last steps, they found out that she had become incredibly intoxicated, whether she was drugged or if she just had a lot to drink in a short amount of time, but she ends up passed out on the lawn next door. She couldn't stand on herself, so a fellow student, Cheryl Anderson, who attended the party, began to help her back to campus. They were soon joined by another partygoer, Paul Flores. It seems that he just appeared out of nowhere and offered his help. He gets his arm around her torso and puts her arm around his neck, and they continue to walk. When they reach the turnoff to Cheryl's dorm, Flores promises to take Kristen back to her dorm, so they split off. This was the last time that anyone would see Kristen Smart again. It took police 6 days to question Flores and 16 days to investigate his dorm, which they never sealed off. By this time, the empty room had been sanitized by the university's cleaning crew, so any evidence that might have been there was gone. While police were taking all the wrong steps, Smart's family was doing whatever they could to find her. Her father would hike every trail he could find on the Central Coast, through tunnels and under bridges looking for his daughter. Early on, a small group of volunteers looked for her as well, but a massive search didn't happen until a month after her disappearance, when campus police finally handed over their investigation to the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office, who unfortunately also were not able to find Smart. 4 months after the unsuccessful searches, Paul Flores was brought before a grand jury. He only stated that his name was Paul Flores, but used his Fifth Amendment right 27 times and did not say a single thing. The proceedings are kept secret, but no charges were ever filed. That's when Smart's family contacts James Murphy, a local civil attorney. Murphy and his wife, Grace Sinclair, take on the case pro bono, promising to go after Flores and put pressure on the sheriff's office. They believe that Flores is a perpetrator in her disappearance, not just because he was the last to see her alive, but also a few other grisly details that come right after her disappearance. Just by chance, 2 days after Kristen Smart's disappearance, Paul Flores goes to the Arroyo Grande Police Department because of an outstanding DUI warrant. In his mugshot, he has a black eye. When asked how he got the injury, Flores tells 3 different stories. Flores also claimed that after walking Kristen back from the party, he went to his room in Santa Lucia Hall alone, but when several trained cadaver dogs were brought in to search the Cal Poly dorm, 4 different dogs reacted to his room. Remember, it took 16 days after her disappearance to search his room, so all evidence had been thoroughly cleaned by the university's cleaning crew. Each dog was brought in and gave no reaction until they reached Flores' dorm, and every single dog beelined it for his bed. Flores also had a reputation amongst the girls that knew him at Cal Poly. He was known for groping girls and was even given the name Chester the Molester. The night he split off from Cheryl Anderson, who was originally helping Smart back to her dorm, he tried to kiss and hug Cheryl goodbye. In October 1996, a woman named Mary Lassiter was renting Paul Flores' mother's house in Arroyo Grande when she found a single earring. She stated it appeared to match the necklace that Kristen was wearing in one of her missing posters. The earring was turned over to a detective but was lost before being marked as evidence. The case went cold after this for almost 2 decades. It wasn't until March 2021 when officials conducted a search at Ruben Flores' home and found biological evidence under the deck in the yard. In April, both father and son, Ruben and Paul Flores, were taken into custody. Paul was charged with murder and Ruben was charged with being an accessory after the fact. Both father and son pleaded not guilty, leading to a 3-month-long trial. A jury convicted Paul Flores in the murder of Kristen Smart. Ruben Flores was found not guilty of his charge. Flores was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. On August 23, 2023, Paul Flores was hospitalized after being attacked in prison, but returned shortly after. The Smarts keep the memory of their daughter alive through the Kristen Smart Scholarship. Its goal is to help young women pursue their hopes, ambitions, and impact the world the same way Kristen would have hoped. They've also recently opened a lawsuit against Cal Poly for not searching Flores' room until 16 days after their daughter's disappearance. Details about this are still unfolding.
I have been advised not to tell this story by practically everyone in my life. I've been specifically warned by my management that this could lead to a defamation case. As somebody who promised you to always be upfront, I'm going to tell you anyway. It's not going to make sense until the end, and I will try my best to put it into one video. Growing up, I had one best friend. We were obsessed with each other. So when I moved to school, we were very devastated that we weren't going to see each other every single day. And we would speak to each other every night for so long that eventually our mums used each other's numbers as like the free numbers that you used to get. You know, like back in the 90s, you had like that one number you could do free calls. Normally this number would be reserved for like your nan or like your mum's best mate. We were so close that we even manipulated a plan so that I would move close to her. We spent all summer circling houses for sale in the newspaper, and we kept putting them in front of our mums and dads until eventually my mum and dad actually bought one of the houses that we had circled, which meant we were on the same road. And as soon as we were old enough and the opportunity arose, we moved in together. By this point, we're basically adults. We have our own groups of friends. And one friend that she had, I never particularly liked. There was something about her, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I didn't trust her. But you've met Helen already now, so you know that my mum raised me to be kind. So I took this friend in as my friend. So my best friend, we'll call her Lissa, is one of those girls that if you're ever in trouble, she's going to be there for you. And her friend, the one that I don't trust, we'll call her Karen, is that friend that always has the drama. She always needs rescuing. Wherever she goes, drama follows her, chases her, like a bounty hunter. It's like no matter what she does, she just can't catch a break. But throughout our year living together, this girl turns up on our doorstep crying, almost at least once a month. Karen's mum and dad have a lot of money, whereas mine and Lissa's are just normal people. Karen has a good job in her family business, so it doesn't go unnoticed by me when she would turn up at our house empty-handed, eat our food, watch our TV, drink our drinks, make a mess, and then just leave. And I'm not trying to be an ungracious host, but this girl was take, in every sense of the word. She was like an emotional vampire to my friend. And it got to the point that when she would come round, I would make an excuse and leave. It's a dark night. We're not expecting anybody. There's a knock at the door. It's Karen. She's in floods of tears. She's done something very stupid. And you know what? Despite everything that this girl has done to me, I'm never going to say exactly what she did. But I will say, never in a million years would I do that. I would never do what she had done, and I especially would not go running to my friend for sympathy or help or shelter, because she didn't deserve it. But my friend invited her in, gave her a place to stay, and made her dinner. Off I went to work, and at the time I was working at a nightclub. I was a door girl. It was freezing, but I didn't care, because I'd rather be standing in the freezing cold on the door than listening to that shit. And my night would go from bad to worse. It was actually a night I'll never forget, because the club that I worked at would actually have a serious incident that night. Someone would get bottled so close to me that I would end up with blood on my clothes, and I'd have to write a police statement. And all I wanted to do when I got home was have a shower, eat my dinner, and go to sleep. Do you think I could do that? No, I couldn't do that because Karen had eaten my dinner. That bitch had eaten my dinner. I had £20 to my name. Boyfriend had ordered me a Domino's and she had eaten it. She didn't even leave the crusts. So in the morning when my boyfriend texted me and asked if I got the Domino's that he'd left me and he had paid for, because God knows Domino's is very expensive and I wouldn't have been able to afford it myself, it was a special treat, and I told him no and explained why, he was furious. Absolutely furious. And I should have heeded his warning. She's got no manners. She's not been raised properly. You need to watch her. And he was bang on the money. Fast forward to when I was opening up my own makeup business. I get a text message from this girl. She was thinking of doing makeup herself and she wanted some tips. I gave them. I didn't listen to my boyfriend's advice and I gave them to her. He even said she could come and shadow me if she wanted. I would accidentally fall pregnant. Best accident that ever happened. But not everything in my pregnancy went to plan. I would actually have something called HG, extreme sickness in pregnancy. And it would actually mean that I would end up in hospital a lot of my pregnancy, which, being self-employed, isn't the best thing. I didn't have sick pay. I didn't have insurance. I didn't have statutory. I had nothing apart from a loyal client base. And if it wasn't for these clients, I would probably never know about what this girl did to me. Because while I was here, strapped up to all different types of stuff, she was busy messaging my clients, offering them 20% off. Yeah, 20% off if I cancelled on them. She was profiting off of my misfortune behind my back. Whilst I was laying in a hospital bed with a face full of broken blood vessels, because by the way that happens, when you throw up for 12 hours straight every day, you walk around with broken blood vessels. This is how that looks. All over your face. The problem that I have with this is that there are only a few people in the world that knew that I was in hospital. And there were only a few people in the world that knew why I was in hospital and that it would be an ongoing thing. You guessed it. It was my best friend. And her best friend. She carried on. She took every last gig I had whilst I laid in a hospital bed. And I had no fight left in me. So all I wanted was a healthy baby. And I didn't really give a shit if I had to have a buggy from a charity shop. And I didn't really give a shit if I had to live in my mum's garage forever. But she did make it hard for me. Now, luckily for her, I'm a positive person. And instead of getting mad and playing messy, I started doing different things, like lashes, which meant we were no longer in competition. I pretty much stepped back, just for an easy life, and let her shine. This girl would go on to do very well. Very, very well. And she actually went on to become one of the biggest makeup artists in the UK, Instagram-wise. But the problem is, when you do business like that, you piss off a lot of people along the way, and some of them aren't quite as gracious as I was, or are scared. I was scared, but I'm not anymore. Who would have known that I would now have this platform? And who would have known that someone you pissed off along the way, who has millions of followers, loads of you are trying to guess who Karen is. And just like Sarah with the green couch and Mark, I know that some of you are going to find her. You're very impressive. But listen, we're better than these people. And look what karma has done for me. And you guys, look what you've done. And giving me this platform is actually better than any mob going and finding these people. Because now, together, we can do amazing things. So I'm not going to waste time on the pettiness, but rather focus on the bigger picture. There is a lesson here. There's a few different lessons, and I'll let you decide which lesson suits you best in your current situation. So before Karen did the 20% off vulture behaviour, she had already done that really petty thing that businesses do to each other on Instagram. You know, they go on the follower list and they follow everyone that the other business is following. She'd already done that. But she'd followed a lot of my family members. And when they let me know, I then did the same back to her. The problem is with people like Karen, is before you can even confront them, they will always deflect. And they will always make themselves look like the victim. The retaliating was really the worst thing I could have ever done. Because someone like me is always ready to accept what they've done wrong and always ready to apologise and move on within reason. So Karen had already told my best friend Lissy about the following on the Instagrams, and Lissy texted me this big long message telling me that I shouldn't have done that. And I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I'd done it in retaliation. Here's the message I sent her, and yes, I keep screenshots of absolutely everything, so please watch your back. I'm not going to bother reading it out. You can screenshot and do that yourself. But this little bit at the bottom here, the plan is we all succeed in this, and I have no bad feelings, and you shouldn't have any either. I feel very proud of little me for writing that. And although a long time has passed between then and now, I still feel exactly the same. The plan is ultimately for us all to succeed. There is enough business to go around for every person. There is really no need for the pettiness. Not on my half and not on hers. So rather than sit here and get into the back and forth and tell you all the nasty things that Karen's done, instead, I'm going to share with you exactly what I did and exactly how I overcame everything that she threw at me, because that's going to be way more helpful to you than the tea. Trust me. I've already said this a few times in the comments, but I'm going to say it again. Having HG is one of the loneliest times I have ever experienced in my life. It sounds ridiculous, and you don't really think about it until you're right in the midst of something like that, something so debilitating that you can't get out of bed, but you will lose best friends. People will compare what you're going through to morning sickness. They will tell you to eat ginger biscuits, and you will have to make scary decisions about not only your health, but about the health of your unborn baby. And one of those decisions was to take this. It's an anti-sickness medication. And if you know anything about what happened in the 60s in the UK, that an anti-sickness medication that was given to women actually caused severe birth defects in their unborn babies. You might have noticed that I love to research, and so I was well aware of this scandal well before I was even pregnant, which makes it all the more ironic that I would then myself be offered this. And while I was busy making those decisions, Karen was making decisions on what to fuck me over with next. And I thank her for that, because actually it made me a much stronger person in the end. I diversified my skills. I did a lash course, and that lash course actually changed my life. Hence why, with Unremarkable's money, that's exactly what I wanted to do for you guys. Hopefully it would do exactly for those girls what it did for me. It gave me a chance. It meant that I could sit down so that my blood pressure didn't go too high. I wouldn't have to stand on my feet too long. It meant that I could afford to have a baby shower, and that eventually we found somewhere to rent, literally by the skin of our teeth. 1 week before he arrived. I got so busy with lashes at one point that my uncle actually made a joke that he thought I was going to be rich and famous for lashes one day. I was so proud of this, and I'm still so proud of it. But I have to be honest, would I have worked that hard had I not had a kick up the bum from Karen? Probably not. Probably also for the fact that I was pregnant. I mean, that did give me a bit of a giddy up to do better. And after 38 hours and an emergency C-section and a little bit of a battle with preeclampsia, we were finally back home. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Am I dead? Look at the colour of my skin. I was very unwell. But the main thing was, we had made it. In every sense of the word. We had a house. He had a cot. And despite all of the hurdles, we were very happy. So I would encourage you, number one, to think carefully about these little things that you do to other people in business. Because although I came out of it alright, a lot of that is down to my friends and family. If somebody doesn't have the same support system as me, you could very well be putting the final nail in a coffin for someone who's already struggling. Secondly, if you are the person that is struggling, if you are young or old or neither, you are really struggling with anything, with your health, in business, don't be too proud to ask for help. And if you don't have anyone to help, please find someone. Find a charity. DM me. I genuinely do believe that a problem shared is a problem halved, and I do my best to reply to as many DMs as I possibly can. And lastly, I still really want to help as many people as I can, and I know I've started off small with the lash courses. I want you to know I'm not just making funny videos on the internet. I'm talking to people. I'm doing stuff in the background. We'll fight all the Karens and all the Marks and all the Sarahs. We will leave no green couch unturned. And in the meantime, I want you to be nice to people, because you genuinely never know what they are going through. And I know that is cliche, but it is so fucking true. It's so true. I'm going to give you the third and final part of the vulture. Hopefully it's going to answer all of your questions. Apart from her name, a question that I saw a lot in the comments was, am I still friends with my best friend? And in short, absolutely not. In part 2, I included a screenshot that I sent, a message to the other makeup artist. That came after my best friend actually messaged me one day and had a go at me for following people from Karen's following. which Karen did first. And for me, that was enough. I didn't need anything else. I knew in that instant that she wasn't my friend and that she would choose this girl over me. And not to get like massively deep here, but people like Karen, because they always play the victim, will always come off better in some respects. And my whole life, and I know a lot of you are going to relate to this, I have not wanted to be a problem. I've not wanted to make a fuss, and I've always tried to appear like nothing's going to hurt me. I don't know where that comes from. And sometimes it served me really well, and other times it really hasn't. I cut that friend off then and there, which was horrible. And I think at the time, a lot of my family thought I was overreacting, but I'm actually really glad that I did that. And another question that I saw was, what's the point in telling this story now? Point is, I didn't tell it at the time because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to make a problem out of it. Got even more embarrassed the bigger Karen got, because then I just looked kind of pathetic and like my business was trash and hers was amazing, and that's why I was being bitter. So the reason I'm telling it now is A, to prove a point to everybody that karma never misses. And the fact that that day I had an email from somebody who in my wildest dreams I could never imagine working with, who wanted to work with me, proves the point that in business you don't need to be a bitch. You can get absolutely anything you want without hurting people on the way up. And you never know who you're going to meet on the way back down. As women, we are constantly being told not to make a fuss, like some sort of Victorian child who should be seen and not heard. I spent a massive portion of my 20s doing that. Now I'm in my 30s. Things look very different. I'm no longer interested in people pleasing. I'm trying to get better or being liked. And I'm working on it. Part of telling this story has been cathartic. I've stood in my truth and I've told my version of events. But I'm also hoping that it can be a message of positivity. In business, we don't need to bite. I've gotten to work with some really amazing business women. One of them you probably know. She's incredible. She's kind. She's beautiful. She's hilarious. And she would give you the hair off of her own head. No, genuinely, she would. This is her. Her name is Danny. One of the first things that Danny ever said to me when I met her is, I believe in business we can all be besties. And I knew from that second that me and her were going to have a beautiful relationship. We had the best business relationship you could ever imagine. It really is special. Teaching women how to be boss babes. Our first ever business meeting, Danny came to mine and I had a 4-week-old baby on my lap, the Keekster. And the whole point is to teach women, just like me and just like Danny, how to make it in business with good values and good morals. Teamwork, girl power. And I would just like to add, Lord Sugar, you fucked up, mate. Because she would have been the best business partner you ever had. I can vouch for that. I had to take a step back from Boss Babe and teach him. I had other stuff going on with my kids. I can't wait to share that part of my journey with you. But Danny still runs a very successful hair extension business. She also teaches. I highly recommend her services. And now I hope you can all understand exactly why I told you the story, exactly why I'm not bitter anymore. I do still get pissed off about the dominoes. But in the most part, I'm no longer bitter because people like Danny exist. And that is enough to restore my faith in humanity and in women in business. I'd just like to end this video with saying, please leave Lydia Fowler, Kate, P. Louise, and all those other women alone, because not one of them is Karen. And actually, judging from the comments, I have well overestimated Karen's fame, which makes me feel a little bit good, I'm not gonna lie. And for all my American followers and Australian followers, Pauline Fowler is an absolute icon, but she is on EastEnders, and that was completely a joke. And I'm not sure who Pauline Flower is either, but if that's a real person, we should leave her alone. Thank you. Go and spread some love and positivity. Stop being a see you next Tuesday in business, because this is proof you do not need to be.
Am I wrong for not attending my fiance's dad's funeral because I was uncomfortable with wearing a hijab? I, 27 female, have been with my fiance, 29 male, for almost 5 years now. He is a South Asian Muslim but was born here in America, while I am a white and Christian. He is not very religious, but I am fairly devout in my own faith. His family is also very religious, and his mother and sister both wear the hijab. We live on the West Coast, but both of our families are on the East Coast. But my family lives in the South, and his family lives in the North, so they are far away from each other. This is all relevant. The two of us flew out to visit my family for Christmas and New Year's. We flew out on the 22nd, and the plan was to stay until the 2nd when we'd fly back home. His dad had been fairly sick for a while, and just a day after we arrived at my parents' house, he passed away. This was unexpected, since he'd be doing better recently. Obviously, my fiancé was devastated and instantly booked us both flights so that we could attend his funeral. We would have flown out on the 24th, so the flights were fairly expensive, booked last minute as well. Of course, I was sad to miss Christmas with my family, and my parents were very disappointed, but I was happy to go support him. However, a few hours before we were going to fly out, he informs me that I'll have to wear a hijab to enter the mosque for the service and would not be allowed to go to the graveyard either. I did not feel comfortable doing this, so I told him I would rather not go. I figured if I could attend the service, I might as well just stay with my parents so we could still do Christmas together, and he could come back and join us. His father died, you want him to come back and join you guys for Christmas? This was a very hard decision for me to make, but my parents helped me a lot in making it. My fiancé seemed okay with the decision and left without me, although before he left, he asked me if I couldn't attend the service but still come. He attended the service, but he hasn't come back and told me on the 29th he'd be doing New Year's there and hasn't messaged me since. His sister, who I've always been close with, texted me and told me how disappointed she was in me and what I did was wrong. I don't think I did anything wrong since I couldn't attend the service anyway. She also said I should have at least paid him back for the flight that he got me, but it was almost $1,000 and I simply can't afford that. Why does the sister care how much her husband paid for her? That's not her business. My fiancé makes almost 5 times as much as I do, and his family is also very wealthy, so I know the money is not an issue. My parents agree with me and said that it was important to spend Christmas with them, especially since it's the first after being engaged. They also think it was wrong for him to completely abandon me and our plans for New Year's.
Am I the astronaut for wanting to skip my friend's wedding? My friend Alex recently got engaged. Before her engagement, she mentioned many times that she wanted me to be a bridesmaid. The day she said yes, my boyfriend and I were the first to celebrate with them. 2 months later, out of nowhere, she told me she had a wedding website. When I saw the wedding party list, I was thrilled to be listed as a bridesmaid. Their official engagement party was a month later. In the 2 weeks leading up to it, she asked me 5 times if I was still coming to her engagement party. Of course, I wouldn't miss it for the world. On the way to the party, I checked her website and saw my name was removed. When I got to the party, I hugged her and asked how everything was going. As more guests arrived, I noticed everyone at the party was in the wedding except for me. As the night went on, I felt utterly humiliated when wedding party photos were taken with everyone except me. I was notably the only one not in the wedding party. 2 of the groomsmen asked me if I knew my lineup yet. They were shocked when I said I didn't think I was in the wedding because I'd always been with Alex throughout college and high school. When my boyfriend asked about the wedding party, the fiancé told us there was an uneven number of groomsmen and bridesmaids, so one of the groomsmen would have to walk with the flower girl. I've known and kept up with Alex for 14 years. She and her fiancé stayed at my apartment multiple times, even when I was out of town, so they wouldn't have to get a hotel when visiting the area, and often used our extra event tickets. After the party, she texted me nonstop, almost like she felt bad that I realized I was the only non-wedding party attendee. The whole ordeal has left me hurt and humiliated. Alex's wedding is a year away. After being listed and removed from the wedding party despite being close friends for over a decade, I no longer want to attend. She also wanted me to make her shoes for the wedding for free, which I agreed to before I found out I wasn't one of her close friends in the wedding. Am I the astronaut for being hurt by not being a bridesmaid or close friend and no longer wanting to attend the wedding? I am heartbroken because I considered her one of my closest friends before this and would have immediately put her in my wedding if I was getting married. The whole uneven groomsmen thing. When my boyfriend asked about the wedding party, the fiancé told us there was an uneven number of groomsmen and bridesmaids, so one of the groomsmen would have to walk with the flower girl.
Am I in the wrong for reuniting with my dying ex-girlfriend? I, 36 male, am married to a beautiful woman, 35 female, with whom I've been with for 15 years. She gave birth to our son 2 months ago. In total, we have 2 biological children, 13 female, 0 male, and 1 adopted child, 6 male together. And we are currently looking after 2 foster children, 14 male, 9 female. When I was 11, my best friend was a girl that I met in boarding school. I was a shy, sensitive kid who had an adverse home life and didn't get along well with my classmates, so she was the first friend I ever made. I had a crush on her for a few years, and we even briefly dated when we were 15, but we never considered it anything serious. Throughout high school, we were inseparable, but after graduating, I got accepted to a college in the US and had to move away. We promised to keep in contact, but ended up drifting apart and losing touch. Recently, she messaged me out of the blue and told me that she had terminal leukemia and only had a few months left to live. She wants to reconnect with me, and I suggested I come visit her in the last months of her life. When I brought this up to my wife, she was very opposed to the idea and told me that I was acting impulsively. She doesn't want me visiting an ex-girlfriend while she's stuck at home with the kids. I understand that she has a lot going on at home with the kids and a new baby, but I have forever to make it up to her, whereas I only have a few months to reunite with someone who was at one point one of the most important people in my life. So would I be in the wrong?